Mountaineer Nation, let's ride.
But Don Nealon's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread. As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sounds of Golden Blue football. Here is Harris in trouble. Stiff arms. The would-be tackler comes down over the 25 to 20. Goes around about it to 15 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
Takes the Slater one-on-one with the defender. Look at Pat White.
West Virginia football. You know what that's about. They don't know what it's about. West Virginia football. Football, table. They can shoot up on time. No more hair in the helmet.
Let them know. Leave no doubt tonight. Leave no doubt tonight. No doubt. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
And now, the show brought to you by Mountaineer fans, for Mountaineer fans, the Country Roads Webcast.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into Season 5, Episode 146 of the CRW podcast here, our Iowa State Preview and Predictions edition. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Cruz, joined by my co-host, Steven.
What's going on, everybody?
And we're going to dive in and preview the Mountaineers matchup as they head to Ames. Iowa State and the Mountaineers battling to stay out of the Big 12 basement. Whoever loses this game will be there as the Big 12's 10th place team. So don't want to take another loss here if you're the Mountaineers. Plus, Final Four games here, the Mountaineers sitting at 3-5. They have to win 3 out of the Final Four if they want a shot at bowl eligibility. Still not mathematically eliminated from that there, but got to go down to Ames, a tough place to play, a place where you've struggled, and try and beat the Cyclones if you want to have a chance to do that. This is arguably the most winnable game left on the schedule for the Mountaineers, but we will dive in a little bit more on the preview of that as we go along. Before we get into that a little bit, let's talk a little bit of off-topic babble. All right, so off-topic babble here is where we like to dish on anything, off-topic from the Mountaineers, what we've been doing, movies we've seen, books we've read, just anything we really want to touch on, could be pop culture news, anything really. But having said that, Steven, what do you got this week for off-topic babble?
Man, I've been playing a lot of the Modern Warfare 2.
Oh, I've heard it's very good.
I'm not very, very good at it, but the game itself is very, very good. I've enjoyed it for the most part.
Somebody else told me that. I think my cousin was telling me about it. Said like it was super hard though. He said it took me like 3 hours of playing to get about 2 or 3 kills. But
yeah, it's a lot different if you've played any of the past Call of Duties. I mean, they change quite frequently from game to game, but this one it's just hard to see. That's not the right way. I don't know. They don't let you upgrade your guns as fast as they have in past modes. I think that's the problem.
Interesting. I'm hopefully check. I haven't got the next gen system yet, but I'm planning on doing it. Of course, the college football game coming out July 2023. So first of the year, I'm getting a PS5. Got to have it for that. Me, I'll be playing the college football. So I'm still on the 360 on there, playing online dynasties on the last college football game they released back in 2014 or 2013, whatever it was. So.
Yeah,
almost a decade later, finally getting it back, better late than never. So I'm definitely getting the next gen system, January, February, March, somewhere in there. So I might have to hop on that Call of Duty as well when I do it.
Yeah, I've been so excited about that new college football game because I haven't stayed on the old systems. I've been the one that's upgraded every time that they've came out with a new one. I've got the Series X right when they first launched them, which is the first time I've ever done that. I've never gotten a console right, as soon as they came out. But
hey,
it's been a pretty good console for the most part. Although, when I first got it, I had to send it back because it kept shutting off. So PS5 might be the right way to go.
Well, I haven't had a PlayStation since like the PS2 because had the 360, then the Xbox One, and then of course I ended up going back, playing. I never really stopped playing the college football that much on the 360, just for like a year period. But then once I went back and got into it heavy and seen people were still playing online dynasties, my Xbox One just sat and collected dust for about a year. So eventually just sold it and just waiting on the next gen. And then once they announced college football, I'm like, whenever that comes out, that's when I'll get the console. So, and it comes out July, so I'm just got to get it before July. So that's my plan. But
Yeah.
I know.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think me and the old lady were actually talking about getting. I have the Series X, the Xbox Series X. We were talking about actually getting a PS5 to go along with it, just so we can.
Well, you may as well. That way we can, play the game together at least.
Yeah. Well, if I do that, I'll have to get the game on
because
both
I'll just
the
say for the.
PlayStation and the Xbox. But
I was
hopefully
about to
they
say
make
for
it cross
the.
plat.
I was about to say I know a lot of the games are now, but I don't think EA Sports really does though. Like because I know Madden's not and stuff, so I'm not expecting it to be probably, but you never know.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
Yeah, I don't know why either. I've always thought that was the silliest thing. I don't see what they have to gain by not making it cross-platform. If anything, you you lose things by not making it cross-platform because you don't have as many people. To me, the more people that you have playing the game together, the more money or the more chance I guess you have at microtransactions, which is the main thing that they try to drive in video games nowadays anyway. So
that's all they care about.
yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me that they don't.
I don't either. I don't understand it. No, there's no way you're losing any money by doing it. You know what I'm saying? People are still buying the game either way. So I'm with you. I don't understand why they wouldn't. Trying to think if I've watched anything recently. Nothing new. I don't think I haven't watched anything new recently. Really. Like I said, I still want to get out and watch Black Adam. Haven't got a chance to do that yet. We're recording this first day in November, so I went through, been watching the Halloween movies, of course, with the Halloween season. I watched those, but the one bit of thing I did want to talk about was something that did break on Halloween news-wise, and that's that they're having a Friday the 13th prequel series called Crystal Lake. It's going to be on Peacock, and it's coming from A24. That's the company that's producing it. Interesting because Friday 13th's been tied up in legal battles since 2009. Like the original producer and the original writer of the first movie were in suing each other back and forth or whatever. So that's finally, I guess, resolved now, and I think they're working together on this. So something Friday the 13th for the first time in like 13 years. So, Michael just had his run getting Jason back. Now you got to get Freddy back and then have all three of the big, horror icons back, modern day. So I'm hoping to see that. I don't know if Jason's going to make an appearance in the series with it being a prequel and all, but hopefully, fingers crossed it'll be something. But it's good to see it at least, out of the court system and back into where some people can actually enjoy the content.
Yeah, I know that's something that's probably got to be absolutely exciting to you as a horror fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. For sure. I can't wait. Hopefully it turns out good. I think with A24, it'll be interesting because, A24 does, that highbrow, elevated horror type stuff really. But it's going to be interesting because they're kind of the opposite of like the slasher genre. That's kind of, the elevated horror is kind of like the antithesis of that. So it's kind of weird that they would be the ones to get, a slasher property. So I'm interested to see what they do with it. But the fact they're doing a prequel, who knows? They may do something different and heady with it. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully they do some creative stuff with it. I always like to see what they do with modern day stuff like that, and then the new technology that they have that they can make stuff with. I wanted to shout out at the game on Saturday in the student section. I've mentioned it before. We sat right beside the student section where our seats are, and there was a giant beach ball that someone had blown up. Okay, and the point of this story is that there was an event staff worker who I don't know the name of, but is a very, very much on my not nice list right now because he ended that party for the giant beach ball very quickly.
Oh.
But here's where the story goes awry. There was a student, a brave soldier, who got the beach ball and threw it over the upper deck onto the lower deck so that the fun could continue with the giant beach ball, okay? This gentleman, this kid, this student of WVU who we love so much, the school that we love so much, was kicked out of the game for throwing the beach ball over the upper deck.
Wow.
And
Oh,
this
that's
upper
Bush
deck,
League.
this beach ball was put on the Jumbotron at Milan Puskar Stadium. Okay. So obviously the school, people working the
It was
game,
encouraged.
yeah, approved of the giant beach ball. Sorry, I get choked up when I'm talking about it. It makes me emotional
It's that
for the
passion.
guy. This was in the heat of the game. We needed, this was in the fourth quarter. This was right in the pivotal part of the game, man.
That's the extra
that
point
guy,
you needed.
that 1 decibel, you know what I mean? That 1.3 of a decibel could have made a difference.
Been the difference.
So, so I just want to say shout out to the WVU student beach ball guy, and screw you to the event staff worker, because I've been seeing you every game this year. If you're watching this podcast, which I know it's a long shot, you probably don't, but if you are watching,
no one does.
No one likes you, man. Even my papa was fussing at you, and that takes a lot, buddy. He was not happy.
Yeah. That's when you know you're in the wrong there. Yeah. So to that student, we just want to personally at the Country Roads Webcast issue an apology on WVU's behalf to you, because you were just wronged there. But that's all. That's it.
You were just trying to encourage fun in a negative scene at the time, and we applaud you for that, young sir.
That we do. Beautiful. So, having said that, I guess we can dive in on some Mountaineer news. All right, Mountaineer news here is where we like to dish on Mountaineer football news and Mountaineer basketball news that's occurred since we last met with our last preview episode last week. So, Steven, what's been going on the basketball front as far as basketball news?
Well, obviously the Mountaineers played Bowling Green in the scrimmage last week. West Virginia was successful in beating Bowling Green. Defensively, I think we looked really good. Me and Cruz were talking before the show and said that this looked like a truly Hugs coached basketball team, and I would agree with that. I think offensively we have improvement. I think there's a lot of room for improvement in that respect, but I think we could be potentially a pretty good basketball team. Other than that, I'm probably the worst basketball news host for WVU ever, because I know that we have a commitment, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how busy I've been lately. I do not remember the name of that kid, but I know that people are excited about him. I know that he's pretty big get and a pretty big commitment. So that's the news. If you have Google, look his name up, and there you go.
I was going to look it up, but I can't get my phone to cooperate. I think it's Perez. I think it's the last name.
Yes.
I'm blanking on the first name, but
from
Manhattan, and I think, where was he before? Marquette and Gardner Webb, I think, were the other two schools he played for, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah, I do remember
been
that.
described as a scorer, but not really a shooter. Doesn't really shoot particularly well from the 3-point line. One of the comparisons I heard, like, to his style of scoring, not necessarily that he's the exact same type of player, was like a Teddy Allen. The way he scored, just kind of a different type of scorer, but that he does have a knack for scoring and for getting to the foul line. So hopefully that would help.
Yeah, Teddy Allen, where's he at? His 28th school by now?
Who knows? I was about to say he played.
I love Teddy Buckets, man. I love Teddy Buckets.
He's a good player. He's a good player. He moved around a lot, that's for sure. But yeah, I think if you do get him, and I don't know when he'll be eligible. Some people were talking like West Virginia's going to try and petition, since his coach was fired, to get him, immediately eligible. But he will be able to play this season. It's just a matter of if it'll be, to begin the season or after like the first semester. So, after like first of the year, probably January sometime, see him. Yeah. But I think adding him would be good, because like you said, the one thing that it looked like this team was lacking a little bit, or the offense was lagging behind the defense a little bit, I guess you could say, and they could use some more scoring. So if the defense and rebounding looks to be improved as it does, and you can get a little bit extra scoring with this guy, I think it'd be a big pickup for the Mountaineers late.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just weird how the transfer portal works now, and you can get guys like, it's like the NFL trade market right now, or the NBA trade market.
It's almost like free agency.
I mean, it truly is.
You've already played, 2 scrimmages. You got your first game in about a week, and you just now adding a guy to the roster potentially. So
I mean, better than the trade market in a way because you don't have to exchange anybody. It's just if a guy wants to leave and go somewhere else, he can. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
It's wild.
It's a wild
It is.
time.
Wild time in college sports for sure. So I guess Mountaineer football news here. Don't really got too much. I just wanted to provide a little injury update before we get in and talk about this upcoming game against Iowa State. So you'll know who's kind of going to be in, who's going to be out for the Mountaineers, as far as what we know at this point anyway. And the one big piece of news that came out as far as that's concerned is C.J. Donaldson and his status. We talked previously, didn't think it was good. The diagnosis didn't appear to be good, and evidently it was not. He already has underwent season-ending surgery, not a knee injury, some type of leg injury for whatever reason. They did not elaborate exactly, but Neil Brown was asked by Greg Hunter if it was a knee injury. He said, no, not a knee, something that shouldn't keep him out significantly, for a long period of time, just out for the remainder of this season. So hopefully he'll be able to participate in the full offseason for the Mountaineers and make it back. Rashad Ajayi at corner, probable, hopefully going to play this game. James Gamitter is going to be out again for the Mountaineers. And thoughts and prayers go out to James Gamitter and his family as well, as he's dealing with the loss of his mother. We've learned, from Neil Brown in his press conference this week. Hate to hear that. Great guy, been a great player for the Mountaineers and a mainstay on that offensive line, and we'll hope to see him back soon and wish him well in the meantime. No, that's definitely hard, and he's going through a lot. As far as the other members of the offensive line, Doug Nestor, who was out the previous game, they're expecting to be back for this game against Iowa State. Lance Dixon will remain out for the Mountaineers at linebacker. Questionable is Tony Mathis at running back. Going to see how he practices this week. And then at corner, two other players that missed last week were Jacoby Spells and Mumu Benwahad. Both of those guys will be probable. And you'll have Justin Johnson, hopefully close to full health. If Tony Mathis can't go, it'll be Justin Johnson and Jalen Anderson as the backs for the Mountaineers. And they are traveling Marquand Rucker, the former walk-on as well, who will be the three backs if Tony Mathis can't go. Other than that, of course, we've got the game coming up at hand that we're going to discuss in this one, and that's the Mountaineers traveling to Ames, Iowa to take on the Iowa State Cyclones. 3:30 kick. This one's going to be televised on ESPN+. If you got ESPN+, you can check that out. If not, have to hear it on the radio call from Tony Caridi, who, of course, does a great job and better than those television announcers anyway, in my opinion. But having said that, let's dive in a little bit on that. Let's get into this preview of the matchup against Iowa State. Okay, so the West Virginia Mountaineers at 3-5 travel on the road to Ames, Iowa to take on the Iowa State Cyclones, who also sit at 3-5. However, they are sitting with 0 conference wins at 0-5 in Big 12 conference play, while the Mountaineers have at least secured one of those and are at 1-4 in Big 12 conference play. So as I stated earlier, both teams trying to stay out of the Big 12 basement. Iowa State particularly going to be hungry for their first conference win. We're going to dive in on both sides of the ball here briefly, talk about the matchup of the West Virginia offense versus the Iowa State defense and the Mountaineers defense against the Cyclone offense. But before we do that, Steven, just kind of your brief opening thoughts, rather, on this matchup against Iowa State. Two teams, like I said, battling to, get some wins in conference play here, particularly Iowa State seeking their first one.
Oh, man, I really, really thought you were going to say battling to be the worst team in the conference. But either way, either one is
put
true.
It that way.
Yeah, but I'm not. I really thought the West Virginia played with. I won't even say that they played a good game on this past Saturday against TCU, and I know a lot of people are saying that it was close, and they're contributing, I guess, a lot of that to how much we fought. But I don't know. I don't see it. I think that it's more of how bad TCU played for one, because West Virginia didn't play a good football game, especially defensively. Offensively, they played really well at times, but defensively they were atrocious. Again, you're going into another week playing a pretty good defense, and our offense hasn't looked that great, especially later in the game. You lose C.J. Donaldson for the season. J.T. Daniels looked like he was wearing a blindfold out there most of the game. I don't know what that was attributed to, more of if it was attributed to pressure, if the receivers are just throwing off the routes. I don't know what, even live, it was hard to tell, because early in the game you could see that it was happening. And trust me, I was watching to see what was happening. And there were some PI calls that were missed. That's very true. There were some late hit calls one in particular that was very blatantly a late hit that was picked up. So there were missed calls, but I don't see enough out of this offense as of late to prove to me that they can, win this game the way that our defense is played, even as bad as Iowa State offense has been. And they may be a worse football team than West Virginia is in my mind, in a lot of respects. But West Virginia just traditionally doesn't play good on the road for one, and especially up in Ames at Jack Trice.
Yep, I'd agree with you 100%. And I think, that's the one thing that I'm kind of looking at that worries me a little bit is the cohesion between the two sides of the ball. Being able to be there for each other through adversity. You're down, I'm going to pick you up, and vice versa, because it's like the defense has struggled, most of the season. And I don't want to say it's like the offense has resented that and they're not scoring on purpose or anything, but it's probably getting to the point where maybe there may be, I've heard, that there was some arguments between the two sides of the ball on the sidelines. I'm saying? That's just rumor. That's just speculation. Who knows about that? But I'm talking just if you look last game specifically, the defense as bad as they were in that second half, they gave West Virginia, 3 different chances there late to, tie the game or take the lead, and the offense let them down. And it's almost like, because then you got to think about it from this perspective, the offense let them down there. If the defense is to say anything about that, the offense has, plenty to come back with. Well, where have you been all season? You're here today, where you've been all season. So I could definitely see where the argument could start between the two sides of the ball. But you can't have that, especially if you're a team trying to seek bowl eligibility here. You got to come together and not fall apart. And I think West Virginia is really going to need that in this game and need both those sides to, be working, cohesively for West Virginia to win. They're going to have to play complementary football. And like you said, in a place they've struggled in Ames, Iowa. So let's talk about each sides of that football now. Let's start with the West Virginia offense, since we were kind of talking about it briefly anyways, against the Iowa State defense. This is kind of the matchup of strength on strength in this game. Iowa State, statistically maybe the best defense in the conference. We know they've done a great job of that in recent years with John Haycock and the schemes he's designed to stop these Big 12 RPO offenses, early, 4 or 5 years ago, that the rest of the conference has copied and a lot of the nation has copied, some of those schemes since then. So we know that they're always good there defensively. Will McDonald's a great pass rusher for them, and they've got players at each level that can make plays, and they make it really tough for you to run the football, and they really are good at taking away opposing offensive strengths. As far as West Virginia is concerned, I think despite, the aforementioned letdown that they suffered last game, not being able to score there late when they had a chance to beat, a top 10 opponent and had plenty of chances to do so. For the most part, their numbers have been good this season. They've done a good job of scoring. The thing that they've lacked to me is explosion. I don't know if that matters in this game because Iowa State's typically not a team that gives up the explosive play anyways. They want, like the way they make you have those long methodical drives. And I think the one thing going for West Virginia is they're a balanced offense that has made that kind of their style anyways, is having these longer 14, 15 play methodical drives. So maybe that plays into their favor a little bit in this one. I know the Iowa State defense is tough, but West Virginia has shown that they know how to attack it. Even last season, a West Virginia team that was struggling found a way to beat an even better Iowa State team and, have their best offensive performance of the season. So you've got to hope that they're able to do that again. But in turn, Iowa State's watching that film as well. So it's going to be an interesting matchup here. Like I said, Steven, strength on strength. West Virginia's had a good offense this season. Iowa State, one of the conference's better defense. What are you looking at as far as this matchup is concerned?
Well, for the most part, West Virginia going up against strength on strength this season hasn't played out for West Virginia. It's been, the opponent that's came out on top of West Virginia when it's been that way. So I'm not too optimistic. Once again, I wish that I could say that there was any part in me that thinks we could go up there and win, and I think that we could go up there and be competitive. But I think with history not being on our side, injuries not being on our side, the way we've played as a whole, even if we didn't have those injuries, it just, I don't know. I can't see West Virginia pulling it out this weekend. And if they do, then I don't know. I'm one pessimistic fan this season.
I think
for once.
I think most everyone is at this point. Even the most optimistic fan right now is probably not too optimistic, but you're hopeful. And I think, as I
Yeah.
said, the one thing you're looking at with this game, probably when you're looking at the remaining 4 games you have, is you're like, well, this is the most winnable one. If we're going to win any of these final 4 games, this has to be one of them. And if we're
Yeah.
going to, try and go get a bowl game, which, I think we both believe is far fetched at this point, but it's still possible. And if you are going to, you got to win this game for sure, I think. So, that's just a little bit of our thoughts about the West Virginia offense versus Iowa State defense. Flip it over to the other side where you have the 2 units that have been the weak points of their teams respectively, that being the West Virginia defense and the Cyclone offense. The Iowa State offense has really struggled this season. They're only averaging 21.6 points per game, only 370 total yards, 272 passing, and they've really struggled to run the ball, averaging less than 100 yards per game at 97. And I think that's where it's really hurt this Iowa State offense. Is something we've seen in the past. They've had great running backs, David Montgomery, Brees Hall, both NFL running backs. And, they losing both those guys, they've kind of taken a step back in the run game, and that's what really seemed to hurt them offensively. So it's, one of the statistically probably the worst offense in the Big 12, but statistically West Virginia is one of the worst defenses, not only in the Big 12, but nationally. And I think Iowa State not being able to run the football, West Virginia is good at stopping the run. So it's going to make Iowa State one-dimensional, and they're going to be passing the football more. I think the downside of that, the negative point of that, is that's not a good thing for West Virginia if somebody's one-dimensional throwing the football, because that's where West Virginia really struggles, is when teams come out and pass the football. And we've seen teams that are normally more run-heavy come out and try and attack West Virginia through the air because they know that's the weak point. So is West Virginia going to be the get-right game for this struggling Iowa State offense? Are you afraid of that, Steven, or do you think this Mountaineer defense shows that this Iowa State offense is very bad, or do you think Iowa State puts up a performance that shows us just how bad this West Virginia defense is? What are your thoughts on this matchup heading into this game against the Cyclones?
Unfortunately, it's the latter. I think that West Virginia hasn't done anything to show improvement, especially in the secondary all season long. They've just gotten worse week by week, and a lot of that's attributed to the injuries and lack of depth. And we have a lot of youth back there, but the most important thing that we lack is speed. We have no speed on the back end to keep up with a lot of these receivers, and even with an offense like Iowa State has, they have guys on the outside with speed, and our secondary guys will get burnt on the outside if they decide to go over top, which I fully expect them to do. As I mentioned to you earlier, I think anybody with a brain would pass on West Virginia. I think a toddler team can go out there and just toss it around on West Virginia, and they would look lost at this point.
Yeah. It's you're in dire straits on that side of the football for sure, and especially when the injuries adding up. They're the one. I think silver lining is you do have Charles Woods back, and I think that's a guy you're really going to need in this game, because as bad as the Iowa State offense has been, the one bright spot, of course, is Xavier Hutchinson, who's been there. I believe this is his 3rd season now, super senior, I believe. But he's the most targeted receiver, not only in the Big 12, but one of the most targeted receivers nationally. And I think for West Virginia, being able to have Charles Woods and match him up on him one-on-one in a lot of situations can help you, because if you didn't have Charles Woods, I'd be a lot more worried that this would definitely be a breakout game for the Iowa State offense. Not saying that it still won't be. I think that they'll perform better than they have throughout the rest of the season against this West Virginia defense, but that's the one thing that gives me some hope, whereas in turn, that's also the one thing that worries me is Xavier Hutchinson is a really good receiver, and we've seen really good receivers hurt West Virginia. I'm thinking of Xavier Worthy against Texas, but like I said, Charles Woods is the silver lining, because looking last week against TCU, as bad as West Virginia was hurt in the passing game, he did a good job on Quentin Johnston, holding him to only 4 catches and under 80 yards receiving. And a lot of the times that's because they use Charles Woods manned up on Johnston, and I'm expecting something similar with Xavier Hutchinson this week. But I think Hunter Deckers is a good quarterback. He may be even a more capable passer than Brock Purdy was. He's a lefty, so that's different. I don't think West Virginia's seen a lefty this season. Jarrell Brock at running back, I think he's capable, but they haven't been able to get that run game going this season. I don't expect them to against West Virginia. And, of course, you always got to watch for the tight ends when you play Iowa State as well. So I'm a little concerned, but Charles Woods gives me hope. Hopefully getting Jacoby Spells and Moo back as well gives me a little bit more hope. So I don't know. I think West Virginia has a chance here. Like I said, Iowa State offense has struggled, and I think really what this game's going to do is it's going to show you how bad off West Virginia is defensively, because we've seen how bad Iowa State has struggled. You heard me read off some of the numbers this year. If they come out and, have Hunter Deckers has a career day, Iowa State puts up, 400 plus total yards of offense, that just kind of will go to show you just how bad things are for this West Virginia defense, because I feel like this has a chance to be a game where the West Virginia defense puts on what we could say is their first, truly good performance of the season, maybe. I don't know. We'll see, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's hope that West Virginia comes out and shows life, but I mean, let's just not sugarcoat it. This is the worst season that we've seen in our lifetime up to this point, in my opinion. It got off to the worst start that we've seen, but it's definitely the worst defense that I've ever seen on the back end.
Here's the thing. I think you can make the argument for Rich Rod's first year, 2001, when they went 3-9, and you can make the argument for 2013, Dana's third year, I think it was, our second year in the Big 12 when we went 4-8. But the difference to me is you kind of expected to be bad those seasons. You kind of knew it going in. This year, no one expected to be this bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, 2000. I'm talking about the ones that I remember. 2001, I was very young. I vaguely remember that one. 2013, I thought that's the one that I most compare it to. But at least in 2013, you had an offense. You know what I mean?
That 2013 team, they went 4-8, but one of those wins was over a top 10 Oklahoma State team.
Oh yeah.
And like you said, exciting offense. At least it was explosive and fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, arguably with some of the most exciting and talented players in school history. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
this team doesn't have that. I don't in any facet. I mean, I just don't see what makes anyone who's scrolling through games on a Saturday want to flip on a West Virginia football game, other than their opponent.
Mm-hmm. I know. That's the bad thing. That's kind of where we're at right now. And I also hate the fact that where we're at right now is for the second straight season and really for the fourth straight year of the Neil Brown tenure. The first few you can, make a case for, give them a break on, whatever you want to say. But I hate the fact that the point the West Virginia football program at is now is that we're just in the second half of seasons just saying, oh man, hopefully we can get to 6 and make it to a bowl game. That's the standard right now. That's what we're hoping for. At best case scenario, oh man, I hope we can make it to a bowl game. And that's just, I don't know. It sucks.
And in all likelihood, that won't happen. I don't see a game that we're going to win on this schedule. We may win one of the last 2 home games that we have, surely because they're home games and we've been playing better at home this season. And that's the only time that we've played with any kind of fight in us, other than respectively the Pitt game and the Virginia Tech games. But how can you not show up in those games and not fight? Mm-hmm. If they would have showed up in those games and not fought, we would have a serious. If they didn't fire Neil by now, if that were the case, then I'd be very upset. One very upset fan.
I'd agree. So
still an upset fan, but.
I mean, how can you not be right now? Like I said, that's what the bad thing about this season is. It's one of the worst we've seen in our lifetimes, like you said, and it's one that no one, I think, saw coming. No one expected this at all. I mean, when the line came out of, 5 wins at Vegas, I think we all smirked at it like, oh, easy money. And I know myself, I'm sure a lot of other people took the over on that really quickly, and Vegas is looking like the smart ones, and we're looking like idiots right now.
Well, I mean, that's the most frustrating thing about being a West Virginia fan in my mind is because we're always the ones, we're always the ones that want to prove people wrong. That's what makes the Fiesta Bowl so great, and in a lot of respects, is the 83% wrong. That's
right
shown widely on there. Same thing with the Sugar Bowl. Same thing. In basketball, when we go to the Final Four that year in 2010, and a lot of us West Virginia fans were like, "Yeah, we knew that we had a chance to do this," and everybody's like, "Really? No one? We knew? We didn't know y'all were this good."
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And
that's what we thrive on.
We thrive on that as a fan base. So when we feel like we should be good and we have the talent to be good, and everybody else is looking at us and we're like, they're, giving us the shoulder and telling us that we're not going to be good, predicting 3 to 5 wins. When that actually happens, it's a shot to the heart as a fan base. You know what I mean? So, especially to some of these other fan bases that have always looked down on West Virginia, who are doing well right now. Not to name anyone personally with a giant T, but
Yeah, that's one thing I heard somebody mention. It's crazy to think of what difference like 4 years can make, right? 2018, first game of the season, played Tennessee. It's 40-14. We go on that season, should have played for a Big 12 championship at least, if not more. Whatever, that's a different discussion. But here we are, flash forward 4 years later, both teams have a new coach. Tennessee college football playoff rankings came out the day that we're recording this. Guess whose number one team in the country is in the college football playoff rankings?
Tennessee, rightfully so. I don't like them, but I respect them.
Yeah, and then look where West Virginia is. They have a new coach as well. Same time frame that they beat that Tennessee team 40-14, and West Virginia is playing a game the same week that Tennessee is ranked number one in the country in the college football playoff. West Virginia is playing a game trying to not be the worst team in their conference. That's how much things have changed in just that short period of time.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at the rankings, but West Virginia is fighting to be the dead last, at least defense in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it was in the 100-sums last time I looked at, 120s, 130s. So
you're giving up 34 points a game, almost 35. It's just not.
Yeah, and passing defense is definitely, I think last time I looked, passing defense was the worst or next to worst, something like that. It was close. I'll have to look at it again. But I'm going to do a stat update towards the end of the season or, after the final game. I'm going to do that. I'll probably try and do it as a podcast episode as well so you guys on the audio side can get that as well instead of just the video side. But we're going to do that, and we're going to do a season prediction roundtable wrap-up episode 2 where we talk about some of our predictions that we made and how those turned out and stuff like that. So a lot of fun things coming in the final few weeks of the season, which is going to be an interesting few weeks for Mountaineer Nation for sure. I think there's going to be a lot to talk about, a lot of discussions to be had. Hopefully they're more positive than negative, but who knows? This game will go a long way in determining that. And in speaking of this game and positive or negative outcomes, that's a great way to transition into our key to victory and score predictions for this one. All right, so key to victory and score predictions, pretty self-explanatory segment here. Each going to provide what we feel like will be the key to a Mountaineer win in this one, and then give our prediction as to if we think they will be able to pull that off and what the score of the game will be on Saturday. Steven, I'll let you lead us off here. What do you got this week?
So this week I'm going with what I've been harping on the entire show and for the better part of the season here, and I'm going to go with play in the secondary. I think the coverage is going to play a major role for a lot of the things that you mentioned earlier. I think that they're going to try to run the ball up the middle a lot. I think that West Virginia will be semi-successful in stopping that, and then they're going to be forced to go over top. I think West Virginia is going to have to keep up on the backside if they're going to expect to win, but to stay close at that. I mean, it's potentially. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout, but I strongly think West Virginia has the strong chances for it to be a blowout, and for a team this bad, that just is not going to be good.
Yeah, that would be very, very bad. Very bad.
But I guess my prediction, I'm going off the top of the head here, guys. You're getting sheerly from the heart and gut here. I'm going to go 35-28 Iowa State.
That kind of goes hand in hand with mine, because my key to victory in this one is going to be scoring over 30 points. Because I think if West Virginia can score over 30, traditionally that's kind of been the sweet spot. West Virginia's record when they score 30, or 31 or more points is really good, in their history of, playing football. But I think when you look at this Iowa State team, as I said, they're holding their opponents, under 20 points a game. I don't know if they've given up more than like 28 so far this season. So if you score over 30, I think you'd be maybe the first team to do so. I'm not 100% sure. I have to look at their schedule completely, but off the top of my head, I think so. But for West Virginia, I think if you get to 30, specifically 35, you should be able to win this game with how Iowa State's offense has struggled this season, rather. And I think the Mountaineer defense, like I said, this has the potential to be their best game of the season if they can hold the Iowa State offense to the way that they have played earlier in the season. And even if you don't, and the Iowa State offense outperforms what they've been doing earlier in the season and scores, let's say, a touchdown more, that's probably still only going to be 28 points. So if you get to 30, you got a great chance to win this football game. So that's kind of my major key, is getting there. As far as my prediction, do I think the Mountaineers will be able to get there? I think they definitely are capable. They have the talent to do so. But I feel like the past 2 to 3 weeks, something just seems a little bit off with this offense, and maybe a little bit off with JT Daniels. Who knows? Maybe he's playing a little banged up. I think a lot of Mountaineer Nation would agree with that. So I just don't quite see them being able to get there, unfortunately, in my opinion. I'm going to have them falling just short. Score close to yours, Steven, kind of similar, but I've got Iowa State on the winning side, 28-24 over the Mountaineers, unfortunately. Getting their first Big 12 win. I think you're just coming up, catching them at a bad time. They have no conference wins. They're going to be very hungry to get their first conference win. They're playing at home, a place where they, play their best, whereas you play your worst on the road, particularly in the Neil Brown era and, particularly this season. And, of course, you beat them last season, so they have that motivating factor as well. When they probably should have beat you, they were a better team than you. So I think you're catching them at a bad time. They have a lot of motivating factors. West Virginia struggle on the road. The toughness of Ames all play a factor. And unfortunately, I've got the Mountaineers falling to Iowa State in Ames this week.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against it, man. Even if we are playing a team as bad as we are this weekend.
And I hated to do it too, because like I said, this kind of looks like the most winnable game on the schedule. I want to at least hopefully pick one more Mountaineer victory on a preview show, but it's up to them to be able to give me that motivation to do so. And the way they've played on the road, I just can't go with them. But if they come out and win this Iowa State game, all bets are off for next week. Who knows? I might pick another win.
Hey, I'm already looking forward to next week in a way, and I might surprise some people depending on how they play this Saturday.
I like it.
Pick West Virginia to win.
I like it. So that's kind of our key to victory there, and our score prediction, of course. We've talked about the matchups, talked a little off-topic babble, Mountaineer news. In addition to all of those things, we'll get into our final thoughts here before we get ready to close this one out here on Season 5, Episode 146. Really appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you're on the video side or the audio side. You can find the audio version on any podcast platform you like. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, though, do us a favor, leave us a rating. That'll really help us here. But if you're on the video side, tuning in, watching us, whether it be on the Country Roads Webcast channel or on the WV Sports Now channel, as you can find us there on their channel and on their website there at wvsportsnow.com, as we are a part of their network there and a part of the Sports Now family of networks, and we're appreciative of those guys. But whether you're tuned in on their channel or our own, do us a favor while you're in here, hit the like button, give us that thumbs up. That'll help this video's performance and help future videos performances on the channel. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Helps us, helps you, helps get more of this Mountaineer football content out to Mountaineer Nation. Having said that, Steven, before we get up out of here for this week's preview episode, any final thoughts, anything we missed, or any news, that you wanted to touch on, just anything you got for us?
I actually don't believe so this episode, man. I think I'm all tapped out. I'm just
I like it.
Ready for basketball season. Do know that.
Hey, right around the corner now. Speaking of, that's just kind of what I wanted to do, is give us a chance to plug a little bit here. CRW Hoop Show coming out soon. That's going to be happening. And I know traditionally in the past we haven't, covered basketball too extensively, but now that we've got the YouTube side here on the Country Roads Webcast, we're going to do that more. And, for you guys on the audio side, that'll be, a podcast episode a week. But also on the video side on YouTube for you guys, there'll be live streams and stuff, hopefully some post-game ones, and then other things. There'll be plenty of content coming out on the channel for sure. So like I said, if you're on the audio side, hop onto the video side for a multitude of reasons. that's just one of them. Another one, of course, is our post-game shows. We do post-game shows immediately following each football game that the Mountaineers played this season for the Voice of College Football Network here on YouTube. So wanted to give us a chance to plug that as well immediately following the game. 3:30 kick, so our post-game show will start around 7:30 probably. So head over to the West Virginia channel there on the Voice of College Football, sub that up, and you can find us there for post-game shows this season. Other than that, plenty of content coming on the YouTube side of things, and for you guys on the audio side, of course, we'll have the Iowa State review and reaction episode out after the completion of the game as well. Usually try and get that out Sunday or Monday for you guys. So plenty of content coming from us here on the Country Roads Webcast team. And it's Mountaineer Sports in full gear. Football season winding down, basketball season gearing up, and both will be in full effect here in the next few weeks. So there will be extra content coming. So no better time to subscribe than now. But having said that, we will get up out of here. Appreciate you guys tuning in here to Season 5, Episode 146 of the CRW Pod. As always, I'm Jordan for my co-host Steven. Until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those